What's up, YouTube? It's Matt, Trinity Off-Road. Hey, I just wanted to take today to talk about my machine and do kind of maybe a little intro video on myself. So, like I said, my name is Matt. You may have heard me called Jeremy. Funny story on that. When I started riding with our crew about 2.5 years ago, Marty, who has the red Pro XP, who you see a lot in our videos, he always called me Matt to my face. So, I mean, I wasn't in on this joke for a little while, but apparently I looked like somebody that he's known over the years by the name of Jeremy. So whenever we were out riding, he'd always say Matt. I never noticed anything, but when he was talking to Sandra, his wife, he'd always say, now what was Jeremy doing last week? Or, you know, always referring to me as Jeremy. And so one ride, you know, they were in front of me, we pull over and we get out and Sandra's like, his name's Matt, it's Matt, not Jeremy. And I'm all confused. So that's kind of the short story on why you may hear me referred to as Jeremy from here on out. But I just want to take today and, you know, kind of tell you about my machine behind me here. It's a 2021 Turbo XRS Turbo RR Can-Am, obviously. I've done a lot to it over the past year and a couple months. I got it last August. I've got it right about, I think I got right around 450 miles on it in about 85 hours. So put some good time on it, and I've really loved the machine, but I wanted to just tell you guys, you know, kind of go through the parts list and what I've done to it. So with that, let's get into it. We'll start here at the front of the machine. I apologize for any shadows that are kind of leaking over this video here in the winter. Running out of daylight quick, and I had to do a lot of washing today. So, you know, right off the bat, some of the main things you'll notice, the cage is done by Back Cave Customs here close to Nashville. He's down in Chapel Hill, about 45 minutes away. I did full tied-in bumpers, powder coated. It's powder coated Illusion Shocker Yellow. I absolutely love that color. Couldn't really think of too many good things to do with the blue. I didn't see a powder coat that actually matches the blue exactly. Even the one on the Superatv rods is a little off. So didn't want to do blue. Black's a little too boring for me. I like color, especially on something that you just beat up off-road. Why not go a little wild with it? So front and rear bumpers there. The tires, obviously one of the first things people notice. Got 35 by 10 by 15 Sedona trail saws, and those are on 15-inch STI HD9s. Some of the things you can't see in the front end here, I've obviously got a winch, necessary. We hardly ever have to use them, but that's kind of one of those things that when you do need it, you're glad you got it. I'm gonna take you up here in the front end. I'm not really sure how well we'll be able to see a lot of this stuff, but you can see the logo right here. I got quite a few Superatv goodies up in here. I've got their front gusset kit. I've got their shock tower support, which has these limit straps tied in, so you can see the shock tower support right here with their logo on that. And that just ties in. It's a good quick way to get some limit straps on your X3. And you know, if you have an X3, you may have heard about kind of how weird and weak the front end is, which at first I wasn't sure if I was going to do it, but after going on the first ride and then getting in there and looking on the machine, it's kind of weird with like what they call the floating front, I guess. But there is not much holding those A-arms on from the factory. So it kind of just beefs it up. And I mean, I'll say right off the bat, there's no endorsement, I'm not sponsored by them or anything, but Superatv is one of my favorite companies for X3s. You know, if you need A-arms, radius rods, any of that stuff, Superatv is awesome to deal with. I bought the whole front gus kit, and I'll show you the radius rods back here in a minute, but they are a pleasure to deal with, and they're always quick to answer questions and everything as well. So I've still got stock A-arms on the front here. I didn't really see a need to replace those unless I, you know, tear one up, which could very well happen. But I did weld in a Steele Performance taco kit to that lower arm, which you might be able to see there. So it kind of beefs up the stock one, and it also has a piece back there on that there's a little factory bin back there, which, you know, looks like pretty much a built-in weak point. So I wanted to weld that in at least. I had to tear the front end apart because I blew about 2 months ago, I blew a front diff. So I was putting in a 2022 upgraded internals diff, and I just went ahead and welded those in, and I also did the Garage Products bushings with that as well. So I've got Garage Products bushings up front. As far as the rest of the front end goes, got just a mount on there for the light bar, little 10-inch light bar from Rough Country, and 2 pods that you can see up here on the cage. I'm not a big lighting guru, so I usually just kind of, you know, find something that fits my budget and go with that, mainly because we don't ride at night a lot. It's usually getting caught out in the dark, so that's when I have the lighting for. Moving along, I think I covered everything on the front. So, well, I do have one last thing. I do have some rock lights up in there. They're actually mounted just right to the right of that shock. Those are Infinite Off-Road. My whips are also Infinite Off-Road. They're here about 30 minutes from me in Murfreesboro. CA Tech is also in Tennessee, so I do like to support Tennessee companies when I can, since we are all from Tennessee and ride in Tennessee. So let's move on. Let's actually move to the back, and we'll start from there. All right, so out back, I'm gonna apologize in advance. The sun is kind of right off the front of the machine, so we may get some bad sun angles here in a second. But you know, right off the back, we can see the rear bumper from the cage by Back Cave. I love how I kind of just told them, you know, I plan on putting a cooler mount back there, so just close off the back and give it a little protection however you want. So we'll go from the cage, we'll just go into the fact that I got that the new Yeti 24 quart. It's I think they came out a few years ago, but I decided to remove the exhaust and lower the cooler. I am on a mission to try to be able to see out the back, which I will get to why I still can't here in a second. But anyways, I welded up a little cooler mount, and actually just mounted it to the old exhaust mount. You can see here, I welded that up, which was my first attempt at welding actually, and it turned out pretty decent. Welded up, painted it, and just bolted it to where the factory exhaust bolts right in there. And so now I had the cooler nice and low. You can see I got the Fox bypasses mounted up there on the cage over there, nice and low. In order to fit the cooler there, I had to go to a side exit exhaust, which this is actually one of my favorite parts I put on here. This is a side exit exhaust by Joy Designs. I think I actually had the second one he ever made. Before I was getting ready to build the cooler mount, I was on a search for quite a side exit because some of them can be very loud. And I came across somebody who said, hey, I just had this done by a buddy of mine. I reached out to the guy and he had me one in a couple weeks. And I love that thing. It's actually it's not much louder than stock. Mainly what it is you can tell that it's now coming out kind of the passenger side as opposed to straight out the back. So that's where a lot of the noise is picked up. Here on the back end, you know, one of the most glaring things, these beefy CA Tech radius rods. I absolutely love these. They're my favorite looking radius rods for the X3. And I mean, they're just cool. Let's be real. I got the whips back here. I mean, those are Infinite Off-Road. I actually went over that a second ago. Other than that, I do need to, still on stock trailing arms, as you might be able to tell right there, pretty big dent. I've been noticing for a while that my machine seems to lean over to the passenger side, and I think I've been looking at a bunch of stuff, and I did some measuring earlier today from where some bolts on both arms line up to the ground and stuff, and I'm pretty sure this one is beat up enough that it's making my machine lean a little bit passenger side. So thought I was done with the parts here for a while, but I actually may need to get some trailing arms here soon. So for the back end, that's about it. Here on the side, I have these kickers by Southeastern side by side. I've had these on here. This was actually one of the first things I bought for the machine. I went out on one ride, and coming from a 60-inch machine, I'm now in a 72. I immediately was like, I need some kickers because I'm going to be pivoting around some trees. And you might be able to see quite a few scuff marks on here, and I actually repainted these about 2 months ago, so I've beat the crap out of them and they're still holding up. So those have been great kickers. And then last thing, and not that you can actually see it, but I do have an Ibexx stage 3 clutch in there to I put that in when I went to 35s just to make sure I could turn the 35s. I wasn't worried about turning them in the first part, but you know, I'm kind of the person to do some preventive stuff before it happens. Didn't want to run into any belt issues going to 35s or anything like that. And I never ran it on the 32s before, but I feel like it pairs well nicely with 35s, even though I don't have a, you know, comparison to how it works in different scenarios. But one thing I did notice, and I'm not sure if it's 35s or going to the clutch kit, but you do lose a lot of that low end grunt going downhill. I'm on my brakes a little bit more, not a big issue. But before, I pretty much was never on the brakes going down a hill. It would walk right down one. So here in the cabin, I've got a sound bar that I've got from, what is it, Ecoxgear. A pretty good sound bar. I'm not an audiophile, so I didn't want just an insane system. I mean, you can go mild to wild on putting audio in your side-by-side, but it's about a $400 sound bar and it gets the job done. You kind of got to crank it up when you're cruising, but that's all right. Works for me. Over here we have a Chupacabra door bags on both sides. There's one behind you here as well. I actually have a few other Chupacabra things. I really like Chupacabra as well. I have their rear view mirror right here, and then I have their side mirrors as well. So a couple Chupacabra things on here. I think their pricing is pretty awesome as far as products go, and I have had no issues out of any of them. There's great storage in those door bags. Got the Kimimoto tablet holder here. Run a little 7-inch tablet with I run Gaia GPS and just track my own stuff. I haven't had too many issues with that, but you may hear us joke, we all follow lifetime Kevin maps because Kevin's usually the one in the front and has the maps. I got my phone mount over there, just a RAM mount mounted to the cage. Got a Superatv windshield, which I actually just purchased and cut out a couple weeks ago. They got a cool new kit. I was looking at just buying one of their windshields and cutting it up, but now they have a cut your own windshield kit, so I'll take you around front. It actually comes as the giant piece, and then what's cool about it is the bottom down here is actually pre-cut to the X3, so the rest of it, you know, you need to cut to fit your cage and cut to fit everything. I mean, I notched it out for my mirrors, which ended up being not necessary really, but did that, and then you know, you can cut wherever you want to use the Velcro clamps to attach it to the machine. Back to the inside, not much else in here. I mean, I've obviously got all my switches over there on the driver's side wired to my lights. I do have a bigger battery kit. I can't remember off the top of my head what it is. I think it's a full throttle battery, but you know, if you've owned any Can-Ams, I think those Yabusa batteries they come with are pretty terrible. On my old Maverick Sport, it was dead 2 weeks after I bought the machine. So that's one of the first things I do is buy a bigger battery. And I don't run a whole lot of electronics or anything, but it's just nice to know that you may not die out there in the woods. So, you know, everything else done in the machine, I got a pretty long list on my phone, but a lot of small stuff. I did do the what I guess they call the noise reduction kit, where you cut this out and then because the intake is actually right behind your head, and so you cut this out and install one of these. There's a bunch of different companies. I just bought a cheap one off Amazon. It's been fine, but you install the little mesh intake, so it's now pulling in air through here instead of pulling it in right behind your head. So that's quieted down a little bit. I can't say it's a huge difference, but you know, it's enough to be worth it. I think it was only like 40 bucks to purchase that. So, you know, as far as the machine goes, that's pretty much everything.